Okay, so the storytellers for Changeling the Dreaming and the Living World of Darkness venue have been getting some questions about enchanting, how changelings do it, how it affects prodigals, basically anybody, any other splat character in another venue, werewolves, vampires, demons, hunters, that kind of thing. So we've made this hangout here just to talk a little bit about it and answer some really common questions. The basic method of enchanting is changelings are chimera spirits. They're actually made up of the dreaming themselves, everything inside of them. They don't have any corporeal body. That's why they take human bodies. That's how they survived on Earth. They can take what's within them though and force it onto things. They can infuse an area with glamour. They can throw it at tiny little bits of just crappy things that they have around the house. They'll infuse this with like a point of glamour, and it's just the word for dross actually means, you know, piece of crap. So they'll have this little piece of crap that has one glamour point in it, and it's not really worth too much. At the end of the month, it disappears. There was never any more glamour in there. It's just you're back with the original piece of crap. However, why would you do this, ever? You could use it as some really crappy form of currency within the changeling world, but it's a false economy. You're always rushing to spend this, because everybody knows that temporary dross disappears at the end of the month. So what's really common for changelings, though, is that they use this to enchant people. They'll enchant this thing, right? And then they'll have somebody accept it. And once they accept it, then that's it. That person is enchanted. This harkens back to the old mythological tales of the Fae. Don't give gifts to the Fae. Don't accept gifts from the Fae. That kind of thing. Because once you do, you're part of that world. The near dreaming, you are always within the near dreaming. You're in that plane of existence. However, you can't see it, and it does not recognize you until you're enchanted. And then you're fair game to all the chimera spirits that are there. So while you're seeing all this weird and wacky stuff, all this weird and wacky stuff sees you, can attack you with reduced difficulties. Changelings can always see you, but again, it's easier to attack you once you're enchanted. Another way to do it, again, is instead of a changeling just forcing some glamour on a passive object, is forcing the glamour directly on you. They usually don't like to do this because characters can get a willpower resist to that. So usually they'll try and do the gift thing because it's just easier, because a clay pipe is not going to fight back. So say the person refused to take the business card, the clay pipe, the little thing of bobby pins, the soda bottle, whatever. So you try and force the glamour on them. Usually this will work, but say they're a mage. You know, they've got they can resist it. They've got a very high DC of 8 against you, which is the standard thing for mages. And they'll try and fight back. If they successfully fight back against that, then the enchantment did not work. However, if it did work, then again they're in the dreaming. Now, enchantment, seeing all this weird and wacky stuff that's in the near dreaming, typically for anything out there, it lasts for every point of glamour that you infused into the soda bottle, it's a day. So say, oh, that's another thing. Doesn't even have to be the bottle. Say that this was filled with Coca-Cola. Then you could infuse the Coca-Cola with glamour. You can put it into food. The person drinks the Coca-Cola, then they've got it in them. So say you put like 3 points of glamour in this. The person is enchanted for 3 days. Except for if they're a werewolf. If they're a werewolf, it's double the amount of time because these are pretty much wild spirits. They share kin with changelings. So they're enchanted for 6 days now. Let's see, more exceptions to the rule besides werewolves. Wraiths need to manifest properly from the into the Skinlands before they can be enchanted, although seeing the ghost court in the dreaming isn't unheard of. And I feel like there was something else. Vampires. You bite into a vampire bites into a changeling. The glamour they're infused with is equal to the blood points they take from the changeling. and a bunch of other wacky and wild stuff happens to them, but we won't get into that. This is pretty much just enchantment. Any more questions? Anything that you guys are curious about?
Should you mention the effect enchantment has about being able to see Fey names?
Right. Okay, so once you're enchanted, say your Malkavian is enchanted. Well, holy crap, now you see what was always there, what was hiding in plain sight. That's the big thing about Changeling. It's always technically there. You see what this Fae that enchanted you really looks like. If she's a she, you see the additional dots of appearance, as well as the pointy ears. If it was a puka, you see their animal affinity, that kind of thing. And if you look a little bit harder, you can also see what they look like as a human. So you're seeing two things at once, with the glamour side being a lot more strong. Now, you're a Malkavian. You're not susceptible, the Clan of the Moon is not susceptible to something called the Miss, and which is typically a very closely guarded secret amongst the Malkavians because it's a hell of a form of protection. Say that you've got the requisite dots in Fey lore to know about changelings, and say that you've been a Malkavian long enough to know you're not susceptible to the Miss. You're not going to go around telling changelings that, because changelings have lived their entire lives thinking that they can get away with anything because the Miss will come down and save them. It does most of the time, just about every time. They don't really have a masquerade per se.
Hello.
Hey.
Would you like to take a baby?
Yeah, please do.
Can you pause that? Well, not pause it, you know.
I'll be right back, guys.
Yeah, so as Sarah's saying, normally the mist would protect the changelings, and everything the changeling did or will do will be forgotten in due time. However, with our Malkavian friends, anything that happened will stick instead. So, let's say that your Malkavian does, in fact, get enchanted and experience this wacky, weird world, which is pretty much the dreaming, or the near dreaming. And the next day, he'll remember this, instead of it being like a foreign, far dream, which it usually is, or just totally blocked out of your memory for most vampires. All of a sudden you remember this, which is usually not a good thing for changelings because they think they can get away with everything. I hope that sort of explains the matter a little bit. You know,
Does enchanting affect other vampires at all regarding the mists and remembering?
that is actually a pretty good question. Well, the thing is that whereas Malkavians are naturally immune to the mist, other vampires aren't. They are affected by the mist. However, by enchanting someone, for the time that they are affected by the mist, or by the enchantment, the mist will not apply. For that time, memories will stick. Now, you can make a sort of argument between long-term and short-term memory, and whether your long-term memory of the events will stick because of the mist that might kick in after the enchantment. However, it's safe to assume that while a Tremere is enchanted and experienced the dreaming and everything, well, the near dreaming and all the inhabitants, for that time being, the mist will, well, stay clear of this particular enchanted creature. Let's see, other things about vampires and enchantments. Not directly.
So I guess the question then is, say a non-Malkavian, pretty much anyone, vampire or whatever, say they're enchanted.
Mm-hmm.
They remember the things while they're enchanted. After they're done being enchanted, do they still remember the things that took place while they were enchanted, or do they forget everything?
That actually is a good question. Well, every creature for changelings, anyway, have a certain banality rating. Banality, the easiest way to explain this is how boring, rigid someone's worldview and experiences really are. Now, the mist affects everyone according to their banality rating. Usually, the lower it gets, the better your remembrance of something is. However, if you are confronted with the same experiences more often, memories will stick. It's not like suddenly after 2 days, let's say that you were enchanted for 2 days, that after 2 days you suddenly forget what you did for those 2 days, because that just doesn't make any sense. However, after those 2 days, the enchantment will wear off, and you will see the world the way you remember it again. There's Sarah again.
I'm back. What'd I miss?
Pretty much enchantment, how it works for anyone but Malkavians, and what happens after the enchantment is done.
Right. I'm going to actually to show you what a huge boon this is for the frickin' Malkavians. And this is because if you look in the first edition sourcebook, I believe, before changelings were really written about in White Wolf, they said, hey, Malkavians are mad and that kind of thing. They're into all this enlightened madness and fairy shit. Let's say that they can they're instrumental in paving the way to Arcadia, and they might even be able to find Arcadia. And they said all kinds of crazy stuff. But the being able to really see the crazy for what it was, held. Anyways, I'm going to direct your attention to the Banality and Mist chart. So, Kyle, you're Malkavian. If you look at this, usually, okay, so say you are a human. Your Banality would be 7. You are enchanted, and within the book, usually you go into a coma after you come out of the dreaming. We're not going to do that here because then it just ties up a bunch of players being unable to play. What we are going to say, though, is that the fog afterwards holds up, and we're going to say that, say you've got a Banality 7, you're going to be really hazy for about 2 weeks, and when you try and recall anything, it's going to be kind of like maybe it was all a dream sort of thing. Like you don't really believe that all that stuff happened. So you can see why the Fae like to get away with all kinds of crazy stuff because they're used to being protected. Now, enchantment lasting 1 day per point of glamour spent. There's an exception to it. My character, when she met that mage and fell in love with him and that kind of thing, she enchanted him and took him into the dreaming. And because he was unfamiliar with how the dreaming works, she kind of held him hostage. She put him in her freehold, and from there everything suspends. So you can hold somebody indefinitely there with just 1 point of glamour. You can hold a human there indefinitely, I'd say. They wouldn't be able to resist. And I can go on, and the person won't age at all. When they come out into Earth and stuff, it's going to be kind of a Rip Van Winkle effect. Obviously, if he was a mage, If he just used some basic correspondence, he would have been able to get out of there really quick, but he didn't know what was going on. And the same will happen to anybody else. When you're in a freehold, you've got certain protections, from the point of view of the Fae, at least. Let's see. When you're in the dreaming, if, let's see. Another thing to keep in mind when you're in the dreaming, if you're on the silver path, you're probably going to be okay. If you're with a Fae and the Fae is guiding you, you will probably be okay. If you stray off the silver path, unless this Fae is very experienced in navigating the dreaming, there is a chance you could get lost. It's dangerous out there. It's dangerous to Fae. Let's see. Can you think of anything else, Bram?
Well, perhaps explain the dangers of being lost, because when you're lost, you're even lost, as in changelings can also get lost, and that can be a life or death situation if you're not careful what you interact with.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's talk about the dreaming. You're probably at the first level going to face the near dreaming, and that is just kind of the chimera spirits of the everyday world around you. IKEA has some kind of monstrous presence, you know, some kind of labyrinth sort of entity. McDonald's is a crushing well of banality, so you'll probably see a big absence in the dreaming where McDonald's would be. But there's traditional places of hope, like children's centers and that kind of thing. Movie theaters are really popular. So you're going to see all the spirits that manifest from there. And normally, these things are strange, but they're not going to outright kill you. Where things really start to get dangerous is when you move deeper and you get into the far dreaming. And these are humans' dreams. And they will kill you. I mean, this is the stuff that gives people nightmares. Human nightmares usually do the worst. The way that the far dreaming works is usually there's like little dreams kind of bubble up to the surface and little nightmares bubble up and then they disperse, and it's constantly changing every single day. If you get either something that causes a lot of awe, Godzilla walks through New York or something like that. It's got to be pretty incredible. Or something really terrible. There's a massive explosion or something like that. Something really a natural disaster that kills a lot of people. That kind of thing. If a lot of people feel the same emotion that creates some sort of sense of awe, for negative or positive, then the entire scape of the far dreaming is going to change. It's going to change for a longer amount of time. And this is where really bad stuff will come out. Nightmare realms and so forth will manifest, and these are areas that have more permanence in the dreaming and are stronger, because every chimera spirit that's created in the dreaming, it desperately wants to live. Changelings want to live, and they've figured out how to do it by going through the changeling way, but you also get monsters called the Golconda and Golconder. I can't pronounce it right, but you've got all kinds of monstrous chimera. The sort of things that would be fodder for like a hunter game or that kind of thing out there that want to kill you as well, lurking around in the far dreaming, lurking around in Earth. If you progress even further, and it's really hard for you to tell where you're going in the dreaming once you're off the silver path too, so you might find that you go from the near dreaming to a pocket in the deep dreaming, and it's really scary because everything just changes. It's not linear by any means. So as you start to get further, you get the things that really make changelings really upset and nervous. The deep dreaming is where the oldest, most powerful dreams that have been around the longest and know their way around the block live. Really bad stuff. Fear of the dark lives in the deep dreaming. That kind of thing. Because the things that really stay with us, unfortunately, aren't always positive. The things that really get a rise out of us are bad emotions. So you get a lot of really scary shit in the deep dreaming. You get the denizens of the dreaming that come straight from there. The Adhene. Nobody's really had that sort of fear of the forest that the Adhene sprung from for, like, 1,500 years. But they're still there because the fear was so real and so powerful that they gained so much power. The Thalane, you'll find them in the deep dreaming. You'll also find them in the far and near. They've spread out a little bit more since then, but you'll find more Thalane there. You'll find perhaps more things that associate with House Baelor, because there's sort of a demonic presence in the deep dreaming as well. You'll certainly find more nightmares. There are rumors that you will find the true Fae there. And if you're wondering, these are the exact same true Fae that you find in Lost. If you're really curious, there's creation rules in New World Darkness for the true Fae, so you can see just how freaking terrifying they are. These guys have no empathy, not even towards, like, changelings. They're really scary stuff. It's rumored also that Arcadia is in the center of the deep dreaming. Once upon a time, Arcadia might have been the moon, but it's been moved, probably to avoid the technocracy. It's really sketch, like, where Arcadia is now. But there's a theory that it's in the heart of the deep dreaming, which might explain why it's kind of suggested that if you go to Arcadia, if somehow you are able to successfully go to Arcadia, which is supposed to be, like, ridiculously impossible for anybody, even the most powerful NPC, you should never be able to return. It's just too far deep into the dreaming. And this is where the changelings have to live all the time, and they're always dodging this really dastardly dangerous stuff. I believe in our own lore for New York City, there was a time where Central Park was home to a dragon, and this was a dragon that manifested in the near dreaming. So the changelings always had to worry about being killed by a dragon when they were in Central Park, but none of the humans ever needed to worry about that. I mean, every once in a while, a changeling would be killed in the dreaming, which would mean that their body went into a coma. It was chimerical death. So that's why changelings are so mad, because they have to deal with this all the time. Changeling the Dreaming is a game that's about walking a tightrope and balancing all these things. And I think I've covered everything.
Yeah, I think so too, unless people have questions.
Cool. Again, if you're curious about, like, the effect of your prodigal with the miss, I urge you to look up the Banality chart. For anybody that's just watching this for the hell of it, you can find Banality charts online. If any of the players are interested about their own Banality score, please just ask me or ask Bram, the other changeling storyteller. And I think we'll end the scene here. Thank you all for watching.